Hi, my name's Michael, and today I want to do something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that is talking about books in translation. As most of you might know, I am a big fan of reading books in translation, and I often think about it the same way people think about reading diversely. A lot of people want to be more diverse in their reading, and that often means more people of colour or exploring LGBTQ authors. And I think that's great and we definitely should be doing this. But for me, when I think about reading diversely, I'm more likely to want to read about people's lives in different societies. I want to know their struggles, the political and the cultural differences. I want to learn about places I've never been. I want to discover different ideas that I've never thought of. And I want to read a narrative that is different to the Western narrative. And I'm not saying Western narrative is all the same. There is some very different styles. You could look at French literature and see how different it is to English or American literature. And I think that's the same for all over the world. And I do read a lot of Russian literature, obviously, because I love Russian politics and love the Soviet era, and I just can't get enough of their literature. But I also like French and Japanese literature. If I look at my top three countries that are books in translation, it would be Russia, then it would be France, and then Japan. And I think Germany follows after that. And I do know that I need to read more African and South American authors, and I'm definitely working at that. But for me, I think it is a interesting project, and I just wanted to talk about books in translation a bit more because I think it's important to talk about. And this is leading up to the Man Booker International Prize, which longlist is going to be announced next month on the 10th of March. The funny thing is, there's a lot of people getting excited about the Man Booker long list and short list, but when it comes to the Man Booker International Prize, there is not much promotion and it's not getting talked about quite as much. And I think it's a shame that we don't talk about translated fiction enough. I know the Man Booker International Prize is a merger of two international prizes. The Man Booker had a prize that was done every couple of years, and the Independent Foreign Fiction Prize have merged together to create this prize that will be happening yearly. So you've got the international awards at the beginning of the year and the English awards happening at the end, and that kind of gives the Man Booker more exposure on literary prizes, but I'm a little sad to see it not getting promoted as much as the Man Booker Prize. And for me, I'm really excited about the Man Booker International Prize. I can't wait to see what makes the long list. But I thought I'd make this video because I've wanted to do it a long time and I want to talk about the importance of picking a translator. And there are times where you can't pick a translator, so it's not really an issue. And this is normally with more recent releases. But you do know some great publishers that do a lot in translated fiction that you can always look to if you want to expand your horizons a little more and read more books in translation. I'm talking about publishers like Portobello Books, and I recently reviewed A Meal in Winter and loved it, and I'm hoping to read The Vegetarian really soon. Another great publisher that worth talking about is Pushkin Press, and I have read The Librarian and I hope to read The Parrot very soon as well. And a publisher that probably gets talked about more than the others, and that is And Other Stories. And I definitely need to read some more And Other Stories. And all these three publishers, I wish I could collect all their books because they all sound fascinating. And I've always had good experiences with these publishers, and I think they always pick a good translator and they always work hard at producing books well worth reading. But when it comes to classics, there are lots of different translators out there, and a translator can really make or break the book. And I think it is important to take a little bit of time and pick the translator before you dive into a big book. Say, if you want to read War and Peace, you want to be sure that you're reading a translator that you can get behind and that you'll enjoy the writing style. And all translators have different techniques, and it really is up to you to find the one that you connect with. But it's also important to reference the translator when you are talking about books in translation, because they put a lot of work in, and this is an art form for them. And the process of translating a book can be just as difficult as writing a book, and they deserve so much recognition because their job's so important, and without them we may never get to explore different countries and different continents the way we get to do it at the moment. And I know that translating fiction isn't getting enough attention. I believe some countries get around 9% of books translated, some countries are close to 1%, and I know in Australia, America, and the United Kingdom that there aren't enough books being translated, and it is something we need to put more attention on and support more so we can explore the lives and learn about different cultures. So when you're going to read a classic, I think one of the best things you could do is just try a couple of pages of different translators and see which ones you prefer. I know there are translators that try to go for the most accurate reading of the text, and that can be important and definitely something that you need to consider, especially if you're doing some academic studies. There is a publisher that I would recommend if you're interested in going with that, and that is the Oxford World Classics. And this is just a collection of the Kafka books I've got, and I want to collect so many more Oxford World Classics. You can see my video, you can see some world classics, and then you can see my and other stories and then vintage books on my shelf. But I definitely want more of them, and I definitely trust their opinion. But there are different styles, like some translators try to match the beauty of the words, and that means it might not be completely accurate, but you can still feel that style that is so important to the writing of an author. And I think that it can be a difficult balance to find. I know there are translators out there that do it different ways. I even know of a translator that doesn't actually speak the language. He gets someone to translate it word for word into English, and then he tries to make it coherent, which doesn't sit right with me, and I don't read that translation because I often find that it doesn't really work for me, and it turns out to be dull and boring. But I'm not saying that other people might not love these translators, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't read them. But what I am saying is definitely try and find a translator that works for you. And if you are a bit lazy and you don't want to take the time to pick the translator, you can always search online to find who did the best translation of a book, and you can always go with a publishing house that you enjoy. I mean, I love the Oxford World Classics, and I would definitely pick up those translations over a lot of the others. But another publisher that I found recently and that I've loved, and they've really helped me with Russian classics in particular, is Alma Classics, and they often do brand new translations of works. And I read a lot of Bulgakov because of them. And the first time I read The Master and Margarita, I wasn't quite loving the story and the writing style, but I read this translation recently and I absolutely loved it, and it made so much of a difference. I know rereading means I discover something new and I will pick up things that I didn't pick up the first time around, but I think this translation was amazing and it really helped me enjoy the book. And this was translated by Hugh Alpine, and I really like him as a translator. And I have been actively seeking him out as a translator to follow, especially when it comes to Russian classics. He did The Gambler, which I'm still yet to read. He did do The Young Doctor's Notebook by Mikhail Bulgakov as well. And he's definitely a translator I really enjoy and really support, and the Alma Classics are definitely a publisher that I would love to collect more of their books, especially Russian classics. I haven't read a Alma Classic of another language, but I do have Madame Bovary by Flaubert to read in this edition, and this is translated by Christopher Moncrief. And I'm hoping to read this one and see what they do in other languages. I have a feeling that I'm going to love reading anything by the Alma Classics because I like that they get new translators and they try to bring out the classics in a more accessible way for new people. And I know some people would not enjoy that, but it just works for me, and I'm sticking with those publishers because I know they are consistently bringing out translations that I enjoy. I know I've mentioned a lot of books in this video really quickly, and I haven't mentioned the translators, and that's because I was just quickly showing you these books. I wasn't actually going into more detail, but I urge you, if you are reading books in translation, always mention the translator because they are an essential part of the writing process, and without them, we would never be able to enjoy these books. And I will be reminding people, especially people whose videos I consistently comment on, to mention translators, and a lot of you that do watch my videos know that I will point out when you do misreferencing a translator. And I don't do this to be annoying, well maybe I do, but I do it because I think it's very important that we start acknowledging the people that spend all the work bringing us the books in English. I might try and do some videos of the Man Booker International Prize just to talk about the books that have been nominated and just to give it a bit more exposure because I'm very interested to see what is being announced. I probably haven't read most of them because I read a lot of backlist books, and you've found out recently that my interest is post-war literature, but I still want to spend a lot of time talking about translators and translated fiction, and who knows, I might get people to join me on the bandwagon of reading books in translation. If you want to find me elsewhere, all my links to social media are in the description below, and I'm hoping this isn't too much of a ramble. I did not plan anything, but I thought it was something that needed to be talked about. Thank you for watching.